Now the Phillips curve looks at the relationship between the inflation rate and the unemployment rate, because this is in essence a trade-off that the government has to take. They have to choose between high inflation or high unemployment. And so the Phillips curve in the short run is a downward sloping curve that looks like this. Now to understand why the Phillips curve is this downward sloping relationship, let's look at the aggregate demand curve and aggregate supply curve in the short run. So assuming we're at equilibrium, where equilibrium is at price level A and we're at potential GDP. Now suppose, let's say aggregate demand increases to AD1. And so what we have here is we would move in the short run to a point like B. And so we'd increase output from GDP from potential to GDPB, and the price level goes up. So what happens though is the unemployment rate, so let's say point A is here, and this is at full employment. So the unemployment rate has gone down, right? So now we're at a point like B on the curve. So we've moved from point A to point B, but we've seen that prices have gone up because we've gone from PA to PB. So there's this upward sloping relationship with relationship to point A and point B corresponding to this point here, A and point B. Now suppose that the aggregate demand would decrease to aggregate demand 2. So instead of moving to the right, it shifts to the left. So we move from point A to point C. So now what's happened is the price level has dropped, and so we've got low inflation. However, the GDP has decreased to GDPC, so now we're at a point like C, where the unemployment rate has gone up. However, prices have dropped, so inflation is down. And so you can see here that this is why we end up in the short run with this downward sloping Phillips curve. Now, if we look to the long run, we know that the long run aggregate supply curve is a vertical line at potential GDP or full employment. And so in which case, in the long run, we know that any change in the price level does not change unemployment. So in the long run, the Phillips curve is a vertical line at full employment. So this would be the Phillips curve long run. Again, it's a vertical line at full employment, and what it means is that regardless of whether prices are going up or down, we'll always be at full unemployment. So there's no longer a relationship between inflation and unemployment.